Mr. Murphy is another in a long line of most worthy honorees, exemplifying the best of the Irish-American tradition of civic engagement. Now, because an honor like the Eoin McKiernan Award will not come my way again, I have several comments to make. They begin with a thank you to Peter Hallis, for I suspect that my nomination is due largely to him. Peter, in addition to his duties with the Irish American Cultural Institute, is an outstanding pediatrician with many interests and honors. One of the nicest parts of being Peter's friend, however, is that you get to meet his wife, Mary. Thank you also to Carol Buck and Barbara Lyons, Executive Director and Board Chairperson, respectively, and to James Donnelly and all the officers and trustees of the Irish American Cultural Institute. A special thank you to Ethna McKiernan for being here to present this award and for sharing her father with the world. His many endeavors took him away from home often, would surely cause him to be missed, if only to regularly repeat the story of Ireland to his children. Thank you also to Deirdre McKiernan Hetzler for sharing her father in a different way through her lovely biography. The first thing I did on hearing of my nomination was to secure a copy of that book. Not so easy to find these days. Reading the book provided testimony as to why legends have awards named after them, and others, like myself, are more than satisfied to be linked, even in some small way, to the likes of Eoin McKiernan. Yet, while he left a very large shadow, I was pleased to see in that biography that we have figuratively walked some of the same streets. We were both raised in New York City, both had a long career in education, both had a commitment to civil rights for all, both managed to get wives and children to spend a year living in Ireland, and we both have led educationally oriented tours of Ireland. In what I hope are many years remaining to me, I will seek to live up to the honor of this reward and the legacy of Eoin McKiernan. I cannot let this occasion pass, however, without a mention of my family, past and present. My mother and father, along with some of their siblings, came to this country from County Armagh, meeting, however, in the Irish social circles of the South Bronx. They came in the 1920s and 30s, hoping to earn a decent living and freely practice their Catholic religion, neither of which seemed guaranteed in the Northern Ireland of their time. They had no lofty ambitions, but they had a work ethic, integrity, and a willingness to help others. Within 5 years, they were proud American citizens, while always holding sacred their Irish heritage. They had little in their pockets on arrival, and if truth be told, not much more when they passed on. But they had built a platform, a foundation that allowed their children, my sisters and I, my 6 first cousins, to move up the ladder of achievement and responsibility. More than that, they inculcated in us the need to do the same for our children. We have. And by the looks of it, that next generation is well on the way to doing the same. Those immigrants created a small but important legacy. I wish some of them were here tonight. They would be very proud. It is particularly a pleasure to have my immediate family here tonight. My wife has her own Irish legacy, 4 grandparents from Ireland. She has all of the tenacity, wisdom, and honesty characteristic of strong Irish women. Kathy is a clinical social worker by profession, unquestionably contributing to the success of our marriage that is now 48 years in existence. Both of my daughters are also here, both women of substance and integrity, both with an impressive and still developing set of accomplishments. I see in both, more than a little, of their great aunt, my Aunt Margaret, who would have been 115 tomorrow. And they know there is no greater compliment I could give them. I must also briefly thank 2 other people, one for inspiration and one for information. The inspiration has come from a man named Danny Doyle. Danny is an Irish folk singer, a singer out of the mold of Woody Guthrie, out of the mold of Luke Kelly. More than his skill as a performer, however, is his way with words. He thinks and speaks in poetry, and to hear him talk of the Dublin of his youth, talk of characters he knew, from Mrs. Bean and her infamous sons, Brendan and Dominic, to hear him talk of Patrick Kavanagh and Sean O'Casey is to know literary Ireland. To read his poetic tribute to Constance Markovich is to know, as was said of Thomas Davis, he touched the soul of Ireland. For information, I must thank Des Kenny of Kenny's Books and Graphics. In the summer of 1986, Des Kenny enrolled me as one of the first individuals in his consignment scheme, first designed for libraries and universities. I gave him my credit card and authorization to send $100 worth of books 4 times a year. He did that for 15 years, and I read every one of them. That's a lot of information. Which brings me to an acknowledgement. I am not giving this award back. But I must admit that it is only with a very generous definition that I am an Irish historian. Not to indicate this in the company of James Donnelly or others of this, who are here tonight would be a dishonor to a profession I genuinely respect. I do not have the research in training or skills of the true historian, nor have I tested my theories of history in peer review or in front of the general public. I am rather a consumer of history, an avid consumer, sometimes an obsessive consumer. What I really am, however, is a teacher, and I am happy with that. I am a good teacher, and when I prepare thoroughly, as I usually do, I am a very good teacher. Years ago, in a unique circumstance, I started teaching courses for adult learners in Irish history. The venue was Bergen Community College, and I was assigned to a large group instruction room. For about 12 years, fall and spring, I taught a 10-week course, 2 hours a week, to classes of 75 to 110, sometimes doing an additional summer session. I have continued teaching various courses on Irish and Irish-American history, though in smaller rooms ever since. If I have a claim to fame, it may be that I have presented Irish history to more students than just about anyone. Long ago, my wife started asking me afterward, how did the class go? Once in a while, I would admit, not all that great. I was just not clear enough. Usually, however, I would answer simply, fine. I could read in the faces in front of me that folks were engaged, following and enjoying the topic, a very good feeling for any teacher. Once in a while, however, maybe every 10th class, I would answer truthfully, I knocked the top off today. On those days, I could read in the faces of those students with Irish ancestry an increased pride in their heritage. They were hooked, and I saw it. Now, I always had a scattering of other nationalities, Italian, German, and an amazing number of Jews. And from time to time, I saw in those faces, though only for a fleeting moment, a silent whisper, God, I wish I was Irish. We have a story to tell. Ireland has a story worth telling. A small nation battered by various forces for more than 1,000 years, yet still there, proud and free. It is a story of hope and courage and an almost incredible resilience. And Irish America has a similar story. Irish came to this country largely Protestant in the 1700s and were the bulwark of the American Revolution. Irish, mostly Catholic, arrived in the 1800s, uneducated, unwashed, and unwanted. They were America's first minority group, with all of the baggage that term often implies. But they arrived with the American Constitution in hand, looked upon America squarely in the eye, and said, now live up to it. And when America seemed about to renege, they forced the issue, and in so doing, set a pattern for other immigrant groups to follow. It is why no Irish American should ever be anything but supportive to our black or brown brothers and sisters. We were there once. It is why no Irish American Catholic should ever think of our Muslim brothers and sisters as un-American simply because of their religion. We were there once too. We Irish, we members of the Irish American...
Yeah.
We have a story to tell, and it is inspirational. For me, much of this is summed up in a very short poem by Patrick Kavanagh, who once chased my friend Danny Doyle through the streets of Dublin. We then, Kavanagh wrote, we then were fed on stars, not bread. And when we stepped from hill to hill, 'twas logic, not a miracle, for we were fed on stars, not bread. And we have still, from hill to hill, men striding with that ancient tread. And what was myth and high star fed is the germ of a people's daily bread. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been all fed on stars, not bread. And it is for helping to tell that story that I accept and will always treasure this award. Thank you.
Henry, thank you for that very inspirational speech and remarks. And